You know, the whole deal with the political assassination of Charlie Kirk has impacted myself and people in my family more than I ever would have expected it to. I was never someone who closely followed Charlie Kirk. I watched some of his stuff every now and then, just found it interesting. Thought he made some good points here and there, but I'm not a super politically motivated individual. I'm just lightly interested in politics, and I usually just try and catch up to speed with what's going on and get myself more politically educated when it comes time to do some voting and what have you. So stuff like that, a lot of the stuff just wasn't always super interesting to me, but it really was a lot more impactful than I would have thought. It's not just the thought that somebody would do that to him, but it's like how he went out. It's the fact of his wife and kids to go through such a thing. It's the fact of all those people having to be there and see that in person. I mean, just think of how many people were severely traumatized having to see such a gruesome thing. I feel bad for the guy who did it. I don't know where it went off the rails so far for that guy, for him to want to do something like that. I have a level of pity for anybody who gets to that point where they're so hate-filled and radicalized, which is of course not to say that he isn't accountable for his actions. He most definitely is. And that's also not to say that he shouldn't face justice for what he did, because I think he should face some harsh justice for what he did, very harsh justice. I'm just saying, I feel bad for him if there was some sort of circumstance going on in his life that was maybe out of his control that contributed towards him deciding to make such a stupid decision and deciding to make such a hateful choice. And it just makes me feel bad for the state of the country, the state of discourse, things like that. Obviously, the hardest being for his wife and kids, of course. And I really wouldn't want to see that happen to anybody. Something like that happened to somebody who disagreed with me. I wouldn't be for that crap at all. You got to be particularly an evil person and demonized to want to celebrate something like that. You got to be messed up. I'm not saying that if you're somebody who thought that he was a really, really bad guy and he was super harmful to the country. I'm not saying if you're somebody who thinks that you should be in mourning. I'm not saying that. If you don't like the guy, whatever. Just like if there was somebody who I thought was going around in my country and was promoting a bunch of stuff that I thought was like really, really, really bad, it's not going to deeply impact me. But I would care. I would hate it. Because I love my fellow Americans. I mean, I just love people in general, honestly. I love my fellow Americans. And so I don't want to see any of my fellow Americans have that happen to them. And so I would hate it. That's the way I feel about it. I don't agree with people I'm super close with about everything. And there are greater levels of disagreement, but the levels of disagreement is never so great that I just want somebody to take you out. I don't want that. I don't have any hatred in my heart for my fellow Americans who have differences with me. But you know, it does piss me off, the whole thing. And I think anger is a good thing. And I encourage people, when they see that kind of crap, to be angry. You should be angry. But what I just want to say is, do not let your emotions control you. Let them inform you. A righteous anger should inform your actions, should inform your reason. But you should act in reason. So, should conservative people like myself respond with violence in kind? No, we should not. There might be hateful people out there who are wanting to target people, their fellow Americans. They don't see them as their fellow Americans. They just see them as the other side, the bad people. Normally I just speak as an American, but now I'll speak as, someone who's more on the right-wing side of American politics. I see a lot of people getting pissed off and putting messages out there saying, we're trying to turn the other cheek and take the higher path, and we're just letting them get by with doing this crap, so we're going to need to start fighting fire with fire and responding in turn. Absolutely not. It's not about comparing ourselves to the other side. I mean, people on the far left, these want to absolutely freak out because somebody calls them a name that they don't like. I don't think that these are the sort of people we need to be comparing ourselves to. We should just compare ourselves to how we want to be, the way we think we should be. our ideals. We'll never reach our ideal situation or ideal state the way that our political movements might ideally be, but that is what we should strive for. We don't need to be comparing ourselves to a bunch of loony nut jobs and acting like them. I'm not saying that you got to be a pacifist. I'm not a pacifist. I'm for defensive violence, for defending yourself. Okay? Somebody comes up and wants to do something for some political reason and attack you. I encourage you to defend yourself. Do what you need to do in those situations. But going out of your way to target somebody else's family or what have you, we don't need to be doing that. Let's be honest. Is it a both sides issue? Like the current political climate when it comes to violence and calling for violence and encouraging violence and demonizing the other side. Yes, it is a both sides issue, technically. But let's be realistic. It is majority, the very large majority, left-wing violence, terror going on. That's what it is. I look around, and I'm not seeing a bunch of right-wing people rioting all over the place, burning stuff down, beating people up. I'm not seeing that. I mean, there's places in the world right now where there's over 1 million people marching. 1 million, over 1 million. Some people say upwards of 3 million. But even if it's just 1 million, just 1 million, 1 million's a lot of people. And I didn't see any rioting going on some big scale. I see prayer vigils. I see services of mourning. I see calls to peaceful action. That's what I see going on. Recently, we had the deal in Los Angeles where people were on the left wing, were rioting over the immigration stuff. That happened. This was a left wing, politically motivated act. What recently happened at that church/school with all those kids was a politically motivated act, left wing. The Black Lives Matter stuff, I mean, yeah, even that long ago, you got Steve Scalise, somebody will go out of their way to target a majority whip, you know. And I know what somebody will say to all that, you know, all these things. I mean, there's more than that. There's a lot more than that. There's a lot more than that. Somebody will say, well, what about January 6th? Well, January 6th was a bad thing. I mean, it was not an insurrection. If you think that that was an insurrection, I question your intelligence, and I also question your unwillingness to go out and get good information, and I question why you enjoy sucking up propaganda just to regurgitate it. Now, was it a riot? Were there some people rioting? Yes, and what they did was bad, and what they did was wrong. Point being is, yes, that happened. That's like one incident, but they're not even close in comparison in number. I look online, I don't see right-wing people constantly using violent rhetoric towards the left. I'm not saying you can't ever find an example of that happening. You can, but it's a fringe thing. But being that way towards Republicans, that's mainstream on the left. You're comparing the fringe versus the mainstream. People feel comfortable about being out in the open with this stuff. That's why you see people online now who've been going online, cheering and celebrating and making jokes about it. Boy, howdy, it wasn't long ago. I just had a post come up open on my feed from MSNBC reporting on it, and I looked at the comment section. It was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. These people are crazy. But here's the issue. They say, what do? Oh, you punch a Nazi. That's what they'll say. And then separately, they'll say, oh, everybody who disagrees with me is one. You don't got to be one. You just got to say anything that disagrees with them, and suddenly you are one. I don't see that on the right wing. It's a left-wing issue. We don't need to respond in kind. I understand that people say, well, if you don't fight fire with fire, if you think about it from like an egalitarian way, you know, it's about the outcome. We don't want them to have an advantage and then have a bigger outcome. Well, here's what I got to say about that. The right wing is actually the majority right now in the United States. We have control of a lot of the political levers right now. And we have majority support sentiment in a lot of ways. The culture is turning towards us. We're winning. This is not helping the left wing. A lot of centrist people are looking online They're not only seeing this action, but they're seeing the reaction from all these people on the far left who are so desensitized, so hateful that they would celebrate such a thing. It's pushing them towards the right. It's helping people on the right win. And it's people who are on the fringe on the left, like not far left at all, but I'm still kind of on the left. This is pushing them towards the center. Them seeing these people act this way. That's what it's doing. This is helping. If we go and we start acting like that in return, then it's not going to help us at all. It's just going to have these people be like, well, I guess they're just a bunch of crazies on both sides. Let alone if you're mad about a man having that happen to them and you just want to do something in their honor because, you know, you're mad about what happened. Well, you should look at the wishes of the person that happened to. And regardless of what you think about, anybody thinks about Charlie Kirk's rhetoric, his opinions, or yada, 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 he definitely was not somebody who called for hateful, violent actions. He advocated for talking things out, for dialogue. That's what he advocated for. You're not doing something that is in line with the wishes that he expressed when he was around. You're doing the opposite. So I'm saying from an egalitarian point of view, on top of that, this is only pushing people more so to be conservative. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. More so, even speaking about myself, more so than being like pro-Republican, I'm anti-Democrat. That's what I am. Because the thing is, I'm a Christian first and foremost, okay? The Republican Party, in some instances, in some ways, pushes for pro-Christian things, but sometimes they don't. And so the Republican Party for me is a mixed bag. Sometimes I can be on board, sometimes I can't. Sometimes Trump does some things. There's a lot of things he does that are pro-Christian that I like, and there's some things that he does that I don't like. I'll tell you one thing, and this will be a topic for another day. I do not think that IVF is something that any Christian should be supporting, period. But Trump supports that. I'm against that. I don't think that's a pro-Christian thing, and that's like a thing he's encouraging the Republicans to champion, what have you. So I'm not for that. The Republican Party for me is a mixed bag. I more so identify myself first as a Christian, as an American, and then sometimes I'm in line with Republican stuff and I'm on board. But dude, the Democrats, they're against me on everything. Like, there's hardly anything that they ever say or do that I find reasonable, that I find logical at all. I'm anti-Democrat. This is going to push people to just be more anti-Democrat, to just be more friendly towards the Republicans. Don't get rid of that advantage. Like, if you're just thinking, like, I'm not saying you should be cold and heartless about the situation, just think about it in terms of politics. But I'm saying, if you are just thinking about it in terms of politics, and it's motivating you to want to do something, some tit for tat, don't. It's not the egalitarian thing to do. You're getting rid of the advantage. You're not supporting it. So people should do something about it. I hope that it does motivate you. There's a lot of things that can be done. But don't get out here raging. Don't get hate-filled. Don't do that. Much love. Peace.